Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Martin Seman. I'm with the United Nations Department of Global Communications. We are here at the World Summit for Social Development in Doha, Qatar. And today the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, is releasing a new policy paper called Poverty to Prosperity Transitions. It's available online. This paper calls on governments to establish national prosperity floors that measure both capability and security. The paper outlines the major challenges countries face and offers a path toward building resilient systems that help people move out of poverty and ensure no one falls back into hardship. This is also a point in the Doha Declaration, which was adopted today at the opening of the summit, shifting from simply ending poverty to creating lasting solutions and build resilience. This session will highlight the key findings and recommendations in the UNDP policy paper and open a discussion on the policy shifts needed to ensure that no one is left behind. Our speakers here today are Haoliang Xu, Acting Administrator and UNDP Associate Administrator, and Francine Pickup, Deputy Director, Bureau for Policy and Program Support. Mr. Xu, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Martin. So dear colleagues, friends, we are very happy to have this opportunity to talk about the policy brief that we have today, Poverty to Prosperity Transitions. And as you know, the Social Summit has these three pillars, right, that is important, poverty, jobs, and also social inclusion. Right? I think the kind of idea we put forward, we term this prosperity floors, is in fact to put forward some ideas to see how this three-pillar concept can actually be materialized. We know that for the last 30 years since Copenhagen, a lot of progress has been made. Right? 1.5 billion people has been lifted out of poverty. Life expectancy has been extended by almost 7 years, for example. Right? So a lot of progress. But also, still 10% of the population still live in extreme poverty, right, measured by $3 a day. And if you look at the multidimensional poverty, right, that is not only of income, but also of their ability to access, health, education, as a services. People living below multidimensional poverty, becomes 15%. Right? And but if you look at this concept we're using today, right, it's a kind of prosperity floor idea. Okay, that is, people who, including people who live just above the poverty line, but can fall into poverty very easily. And you can have as many as 30% of people who can be in that category. Right. So I think we're trying to come up with some policy analysis and recommendations on how to deal with this. Right. And so what we're saying is that if we have a set of policy measures that are coherently applied, this can actually, help, lift additional 411 million people, out of poverty and keep them out of poverty. Right? And so the first thing is that, for countries who have become middle income, very often, they started to look at poverty beyond income. Right? They look at, assets, income creation, right, and together, so that, so-called national, prosperity floor idea, becoming relevant. The second point is that vulnerability, as I said earlier, right, because you have people who live above poverty line, but just one disaster, one illness, one shock of some kind, like a COVID, right, will push them back into poverty, right, keep them in poverty. So how do we really come up with measures to deal with this? Our policy brief talks about this. Some examples that they provided are so-called adaptive social protection measures. Right? So there are certain social policies that you can kick in when something happens, right? And or active labor practices that actively support population in need when a shock takes place. Right? So this is one. Then another recommendation that was mentioned that's quite interesting is to look at the need to build a human resource capacity, the human capacity, right? Through skills development, through health, through education, right? So this is the investment that you can take, right? You can make before income distribution, right? So we call this pre-distribution steps you can take, and so this is the way then you can build the kind of a capacity that can keep people out of poverty, right? Because they're more capable of dealing with shocks and finding solutions. Okay. Then the fourth recommendation we're making is to ensure policy coherence, right? To achieve this goal of maintaining a so-called prosperity floors, right? And not just look at income as a measure for social progress. And here you have macro level policies and also micro level policies, right? So they must align. For example, the trade, industrial and the growth policies, as well as labor policies, social protection policies, right? Social service policies, they need to come together to achieve that goal. Right? And lastly, what we're saying is that once you have all these right ideas or policies, the delivery and the execution of this, are also important, right, to achieve this kind of social outcome we want to have. And here, we emphasize the importance of data, capacity, right, and the concrete results on the floor, on the ground, right? Because data is critical for you to target, right? And if you have effective digital ID systems, it allows you to deliver adaptive social services very effectively, for example, right? So, and we have examples from different countries in the policy brief, on what they have done actually that kept the people out of poverty, right? And the policy brief also talks about, some worries that have been expressed about, active social policies. For example, will this kind of policy, if you increase the minimum wage, right? If you set minimum wage, increase it, will this deter employers, right, to create regular jobs, for example? Will social protection measures that kicked in, right, increase inflation, right? So this policy people also discussed these kind of issues. The evidence shows that if you do it well, you will not have these kind of side effects that people feared. And we have examples from Mexico, from Albania, right, where the government has doubled the minimum wages over time, but it has not had impact on the real employment, right, in the economy, and has not affected inflation, right, as a result. So I think at the time of the social summit, what we want to show is that there are steps we can take, right, to not only reduce poverty, but create jobs, right, through certain steps, right, and also reducing inequality, right, that enhances the social inclusion. I guess this is really the essence of what this policy is about, and hopefully this becomes a useful contribution to the discussions at Doha, at the second World Summit on Social Development. Thank you very much. My colleagues can add some more, if there are questions. Okay, thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. I'll also mention that we're joined by Dajna Soreson, policy expert on social protection. Ms. Pickup, you have the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. And I think the paper that we launched today is exciting because it reflects a shift that we've made in our new strategic plan, where we're looking at eradicating poverty, but we're also looking at what does it take to support people to prosper. As Hao Yang mentioned, today people face all sorts of shocks. You can get shocks from climate-related disasters, a health shock when someone falls ill, increased debt, and any one shock can pull a family back down into poverty. And so this report is really asking, how do we help people, communities be resilient to those shocks and not only just stay above the poverty line, but to continue to thrive. And so it's moving from a focus on meeting needs to what are the capabilities to help people really thrive. And so that sets up some new policy questions and new types of response. So instead of looking just at, for example, cash transfers and households' immediate needs, it looks at how do we really support people to be productive. How do we support that middle layer in society, boost their incomes, increase their wages, learn new skills, particularly in the context of artificial intelligence, take advantage of some of those opportunities related to green transition, and how do you build into your social protection system the ability to support people when they are facing shocks. So those are deliberate policy options that governments can have, and what this paper wants to do is to provide some of those options that governments can make to help people be resilient when those shocks come about.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, would you like to add anything?
Sure, very quickly. Maybe just one point specifically on the labor markets. The paper looks quite a bit at the shocks that are happening in the labor market, particularly in the context of AI and other labor market transformations. And it says that countries need to worry about that, and they need to respond relatively quickly to what is being observed in the labor market. Because again, the education and training systems are not responsive overnight. So we need to anticipate a little bit of this and make sure that people have the skills, that they can get the new jobs that are being generated, right? But that doesn't happen overnight, and it requires some anticipation. So those policy levers that can impact that are also very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our speakers. We now open up the floor if there are any questions. If not, that concludes our session. You can find the paper online, as I said, Poverty to Prosperity Transitions, launched today. Thank you so much.